Happy Friday, Queenagers. I am back. It is Friday, and I'm sitting here in my little office guest room. And you can see in the background that the incredible trees that are lining the esplanade that I live on are still green, despite the fact that we are heading into autumn. And they are quite slow to get their leaves, so they're slow to turn. And over the next few weeks, they are a beautiful reminder, if not stepping outside the apartment where the air has turned rather chilly up here, they are a beautiful reminder of the changing seasons and a reminder that we are heading towards winter here in the Northern Hemisphere. Of course, for many countries a little further south of Finland, where I am situated, it takes a lot longer for leaves to change and weather to change. Last year, we spent 5 weeks traveling around the UK, and we really noticed the difference. Here, you would be wearing quite a warm jacket and like a beanie and a scarf in October. Um, but not in the UK. We were able to kind of travel really light. We had only very minimal baggage with us, just a little travel bag, little rolly carry on. And that worked really well. I was able to borrow some stuff from the op shop. When I say borrow, I mean I paid for it, like hired it, and then gave it back before we left. So I didn't have to take it back with me. So that's a good travel tip if any of you are interested in traveling lighter. Have a lot of tips for you because it's something that we really enjoy. But I wanted to really talk today a little bit about seasonal changes and how that shows up in your life. And for me, being post-menopausal or in the menopausal phase, I know we're changing the language around that because really menopause is that one day that you haven't had your period for 1 year, which for many of you know that perimenopause, it can be, a 10-year period or even more, that perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause. So I think the language around that is changing, but it's definitely a seasonal change. Our brains are changing, our bodies are changing. It's not just our hormones. Menopause and that whole process changes the neurological connections in our brain. It changes our brain. I've been listening to a little bit of Dr. Lisa Mosconi. I think I've pronounced her name wrong, but anyway, she's really interesting and has a lot of research on menopause on the brain. And it is a different season in our lives compared to 20s and 30s. For those of you who are around my age, you'll know. For those of you who are post my age, you'll definitely know that it's a different season. You have a different energy, different flow. You notice different things. You perhaps have cultivated a kinder voice, internal voice. Perhaps you are full of rage, and understandably so. It is a time where you see the world through perhaps a different lens, and you're moving towards a phase in your life where you're giving fewer flux, basically. You really want to make sure that those last few years, or decades, hopefully multiple decades, as you head towards kind of the next decade, 60s and 70s and 80s, that you're moving towards those years to the best of your ability. Those of you who are sitting in my position, we have a lot of working years left, and we want to make sure that in those workplaces that things are happening, things are positive for women. And I was just reading an article this morning, based in Australia, Eureka Street, and they were talking about the drop in number of men who, or young men who are entering university. It has tipped the scale in Australia. There are more women at university and who are graduating than men, which of course for many years it was men who women weren't even allowed to go to university in the early 1900s. So that's a really massive shift. And what does that mean, and why is that happening? And will the balance shift back that it's more equal? So that was an interesting thing that I read. And of course, that's a seasonal change as well, a bigger picture change perhaps. But when you're a history teacher or interested in history like I am, and you pull back and you see patterns and patterns of how we have evolved and what we do as humans, because we only have in a lifetime, it's grown longer, of course. The average lifespan, I don't know, I don't have those stats off the top of my head, but it's certainly pushing 80 almost, that our average age that we're living to. So there's a whole lot of different aspects that when you pull back you can see those patterns more, and how are we moving forward in an age that's changing rapidly? How do we deal with that? How do we slow down, connecting with nature, connecting with the seasonal changes? And of course, you might be living in a tropical place where the seasons, they probably do. I've never lived in a tropical place. They probably do change, but just not what those of us who are used to four seasons. Or in Australia, where I lived, I'm really loving looking at the idea, the Indigenous Australians, there were seven seasons. And when you read about those seasons, it really makes sense as an Australian. Here it's really four seasons. Like, it's really clearly four seasons where I live. But it's a different kind of feel in Australia. So seasonal changes and how they show up. I personally, I love I love all the seasons. I personally love autumn, particularly here where the leaves and the colors in nature just really change. It's really amazing. My husband's colorblind, and he can't see those changes, so that I find fascinating. And I mean, he doesn't know what he doesn't know. He's never seen how I see the world. There are glasses you can get, and perhaps one day I'll buy him those glasses. But otherwise, I will be looking forward to watching in the background the leaves changing. The other thing I wanted to talk about in terms of change is there is change coming in my life. We are moving to Australia. Oh, I should insert a drum roll, except I just upload this video to Substack, so I can't do any of that editing, or I'm not going to. So drum roll, yeah. We are moving to Australia, and so we now have about 3 months to get ready. In fact, I think it's, yeah, this weekend it'll be 3 months exactly. We've booked tickets already. And so, yeah, it's going to be exciting. There are lots of things to do. I'm thinking about all of the beautiful connections that I have all over the world. Of course, in terms of Flucking Flourishing and the amazing, like, platform that we're on, that has had a few glitches, I have to say, in the last little bit, but the fact that I can be sending out these videos to you, it doesn't matter where I am in the world, they will arrive in your inbox or in your life through the app, wherever I am in the world, whatever continent I'm happening to live on. So that's really exciting. As we are moving into a seasonal change, we're moving into a continent change, my husband and I. So I'm super excited to announce that. It's happened rather rapidly, more rapidly than we thought, but I am really leaning into ease and flow. Ease and flow are part of my daily practice now. And how does that show up for me? Well, I focus on that. I'm focusing on breathing into it. I've been doing breath sessions with my beautiful friend Wit. That has really helped. I'm doing a lot of journaling towards that. In my meditations that I do, it's really embracing that ease and flow and using the words about talking about this move. It is going to be a beautiful, flowing, incredible move. And so far, everything has just been like that, full of ease and flowing towards the fact that we're moving to Adelaide, to be specific, which is where I have spent the vast majority of my life living. And so very happy to announce that news. It feels really right. and right timing, and even for my husband too, who has never lived in Australia longer than 4 months. So he's never experienced an Australian winter in the southern parts of Australia. For those of you who are from there, with the lack of insulation in the housing, it's going to be interesting for him. But we're bringing all of our woolly socks. But we will be moving there in a beautiful time straight into summer. So we miss kind of those really dark, dank, and sometimes depressing months that the Nordic winter can bring in the beginning of a new year, January, February. A new calendar year, I have to add, because our calendar used to follow the moon and a woman's cycle, which is mostly connected to the moon. I've been reading a bit about that too. Many of you would know that already, I'm sure, that we didn't used to have 12 months in a year. It was 13. Anyway, I digress. Changes, seasonal changes, big changes, continent changes. How are they showing up? How are any of these things showing up? I'm looking forward to interviewing a couple of amazing, Flucking, Flourishing humans on the weekend. And my podcast is still around. Beautiful people. I spoke to another Lisa this week. You would have seen that episode, hopefully. If you haven't, there's plenty of time. They're not disappearing, and they're timeless, really. And next week, have the beautiful Sarah Rard, I believe, who is going to be. We have a really long chat, so strap in for that one. It is just tipping over an hour. Sarah and I really could have talked probably for another 2 hours, but that would have just been self-indulgent. Anyway, have a flourishing, Flucking, Flourishing Friday, and I will be seeing you again very, very soon. Bye-bye.